Admiral Nechayev stops by Deep Space Nine. Cal Hudson's uniform was feeling a little tight lately. And are the Zeppelites really carrying 5 kilotons of Gregorian wheat husks? Because if so, Sisko wants to see what that looks like. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, everybody.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we are doing a review of Deep Space Nine's Season 2, Episode 21, The Maquis, Part 2, where everything starts getting so good and so cool and so juicy. How are you, Cirroc?
I'm doing good. Doing good. Yeah, it is starting to get really juicy, right?
So Cal Hudson, and Cal Hudson, right?
Very good. Yeah, they have a nice little opening scene there. I like Sisko's opening scene. It kind of starts with Cal and then moves on to Kira.
Mm-hmm.
But he says he really comes off, and they say you got to establish a dialogue, and I think that was the Admiral, right?
Yeah, you mean Admiral Nechayev.
Nechayev.
Right? Now, Admiral Nechayev, what's really cool about her, and I could be wrong, but I don't think we've seen her yet in Deep Space Nine. I think this is the first time. But she was pretty frequently used in Next Generation. She was kind of like Picard's foil. She was the lady that was always telling Picard, no. She was the one that was just always like, no. And Picard would be like, well, I should do blah, blah, blah. And she'd be like, no, sorry, you're going over. So she's always been kind of a tough ass, and so it's cool to see her on Deep Space Nine being like, all right, who else can I tell what?
Oh, she's a good ball breaker.
She's great, yeah.
And she does some ball breaking on Sisko when she tells him to establish a dialogue.
Yeah.
He's like, what the hell do you think I am trying to do all this time? I'm trying to establish a dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, it's a good scene.
Yeah. And before we get too deep into that, I do want to do a quick shout out to our associate producer, Commander Homer Frizzell, who is, he was reporting from the Star Trek cruise last week. He's also working tirelessly to get us a couple guests, which should be working out just fine. Commander Homer is really cool. He also wears Cirroc's sister's awesome shirt, the Sisko Kid, which is so cool. Check that out. Check that out on our social media pages for that. It's really, really cool shirt. I'll be getting mine soon. And also sponsorships. If you guys want to sponsor us, contact us at the Seventh Rule Podcast at gmail.com. That's the Seventh Rule Podcast at gmail.com, or check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/the Seventh Rule, and definitely try to say hello, support us, or just give us a thumbs up on our videos, and that makes us happy. Anyway, back to Admiral Nechayev. I was kind of bummed there was only one scene, but this was definitely, this 2-episode, 2-parter was definitely more about the higher-ups. Most of the second season was a Dax episode, or an O'Brien episode, or a Bashir episode. This was an episode about the commander of the station, the commander in charge of the people in the demilitarized zone, Gul Dukat, Leggett Parn, who's kind of like an admiral type, plus Admiral Nechayev. There's all the, it's about the higher ups, So I was thinking about you. I thought you might enjoy this one more than the others.
Yeah, well, for one, we get to see more of Sisko, and that's one thing that, now my critique of the first 2 seasons is that we really haven't got as much of Sisko as I really, as I would want it.
Right.
A lot of the other characters have gotten really good background stories and episodes dedicated to them, and Sisko seems to, not to have had as many. I think the ones that stand out are the Emissary and the episode where he got into the cage, where he was on that planet with O'Brien.
Right, and there was something in this episode that actually reminded me of that episode, but we can talk about that a little later. Go on.
Oh, okay. No, please remember to say that, because I'd like to know what that is.
Well, I'll just say it right now then. So,
what is that?
Probably will forget, as you know.
Yeah.
There was a symbolic gesture that reminded me of two of the symbolic gestures in that episode. I can't remember what it was called. Maybe it was Paradise, I think maybe was the episode. But that symbolic gesture was when Cal Hudson, shout out to, him, because as we saw in the first episode, great character, great acting, love it. Bernie Casey, right?
Right.
So there's a scene where, Sisko's trying really hard to get him to come back. He's lying to the Admiralty. He's not telling anybody that, what he knows about Cal Hudson. And it's all kind of hanging on Cal Hudson's uniform. And Sisko's like, he keeps his uniform for him. He takes it with him. He hands him his uniform. He says, here, just take this uniform back. Just put it back on, and I won't tell anybody a thing. Right? And that's just like the symbolism in Paradise, where they're saying, here, take off your uniform. Just, it's going to be hot. Just take off. It's symbolic of the commitment to Starfleet, or the commitment to not Starfleet. And then Cal Hudson, and so that reminded me of that. But then when Cal Hudson shot the uniform, he phased it and destroyed it. That kind of reminded me in a way of when Sisko put himself in the box, which was just like, I'm doing this my way, no matter, it's like kind of like taking a stand and being very clear in the message that no, I'm not doing it your way. So there were two things hinging around that uniform that made me think of that very episode.
I think that's a very good point, especially the first one that you said. I mean, that one, as soon as you said it, resonated with me. Because you, like you say, in the first one, the first time we see this, the uniform is an issue for Sisko to take it off. So, like, remove your allegiance to Starfleet, right? Take it off and strip it off. And here we see the exact opposite of that, which is put your allegiance back on, right? So yeah, the significance of the uniform is heavy. It's there's a lot of weight on that,
right?
And I mean, I think we even see that same kind of weight carried all the way into the Picard series, right? Where Picard looks at Rios and he says to him, "You Starfleet, you look like you're Starfleet. I can tell,
Oh yeah, he says, "I can smell it on you."
I can smell it on you.
Smelling everything in that one episode.
Yeah,
there's an episode where everybody was smelling. I smell this. I smell that. Right, very stinky ship.
so just the idea of your allegiance to Starfleet, whether it's encapsulated in the uniform itself or in the comm badge, right? But you're just
sometimes
in general
the comm badge to symbolize it, right?
Right. So just your allegiance to it, and it's like, it has that kind of deep-seated meaning. Even the people that want to turn away from it, it still means a lot to turn it down, right? Even in this episode, we see Cal Hudson looks at it for a while, right? And he's like, he had to make that conscious decision to phase it and to shoot at it, which actually in that moment you think he's going to fire at Sisko. It looks like he's about to fire at Sisko, right?
Mm-hmm. That's when Sisko starts to grab his phaser, and then he realizes it's not pointed at him.
Yeah, and I think it's also a reason why he didn't opt to take his own Cal Hudson's life at the end, when Gul Dukat's like, "Take his life, shoot him, fire the shot, damn it, what are you doing?" Point. And I think it was like, well, the guy let me live. He had a chance to kill me several times. He didn't do it. We're old friends, and I'm not going to do that. So he's fighting for what he believes in, and I'm not going to make the judgment call right here on that.
Just now when you're talking about that, it reminded me of something, because the underlying theme is, personally, I think one of the best themes that we've had so far, which is kind of, your best friend or your brother or your sister or one of your really good friends, if they're on the other side of things, and then you would you take your loyalty to your job and your career, or do you take your loyalty to your friend? What do you do? Because Sisko broke the rules, man. I mean, he lied to the Admiral saying that he hadn't seen him. He didn't take him in. He probably shouldn't have shot him down and killed him, but he definitely should have taken him in. and he is showing his loyalty to his friend, that it's not just a friend, it's a very close friend. And it brings up a really interesting theme. And just now when you're talking about it, I was looking back at how many times that's kind of been done in different shows and different movies. And it would actually remind me of The Fox and the Hound. You know, like that old story of like, they grew up together, they're like best friends, and then oops, it turns out that one guy's job is to capture the other guy. And he's just like, you know, I don't actually remember how the story ends. Maybe he does capture him, but it reminded me of that.
Well, you know, the thing that really stood out to me was how Kira's character plays like a really pivotal point in this episode, because Sisko is caught in between trying to sympathize with the people who are fighting in this rebellion, and also sympathize with Starfleet and protocol and, you know, the treaty that they have and the peace agreements that they have. So he's trying to balance these two things out. And Kira does a great job for me of breaking down what it is that the freedom fighters, the rebellion, is about, you know, and what their cause is for. And that's why I think the opening scene, going back to what I've been kind of starting with, Cal Hudson says, hey, he gives his speech, and Sisko says, I think that reminds me of like revenge. That sounds like revenge. And,
right. And then he says something like, no, it's retaliation. Or
something. No, I like to think of it as retaliation. Yeah. But, and so that locks us in right away to where the mindset is. That's where Cal's coming from. That's what his mindset is. But when Sisko goes on the rant in the opening monologue, and he starts to say, you know, you guys over there in the Federation, you got it easy over there. You got no crime, no poverty, no war, and it's easy to make a decision under those circumstances. But when you have people in the streets starving and trying to fight for their survival, they, you know, they're not saints in paradise, is what he is with exactly the lines he was using. So the saints in paradise, it's like, yeah, okay, well, you know what? Yeah, under ideal conditions, yeah, you shouldn't steal, and you shouldn't do this, and you shouldn't do that. Yeah, that's right. We can all agree that.
Duh, we all know that. But
right, but but you know, if I'm starving, I'm gonna steal some food, right, so I can eat. And 9 times out of 10, somebody is gonna say, well, he had a kind of a right to do that because of the situation. He's starving. Right.
Or in this case, if some people are attacking your village, killing is wrong. But if you're killing to defend yourself and your people and your home and your family, then, you know, we can't deal, you know, as they say in Star Wars land, only Sith deal in absolutes. You know, we can't say it's, you know, you can never, ever do that, because we don't know. There are extenuating circumstances.
There's extenuating circumstances that could justify that kind of action, right? And that's what I think. That's what this episode does a good job of focusing on, is the extenuating circumstances that drive people to do what they do, and also the dividing lines, how it kind of it separates, you know, one side from the other. Are you in? Are you out? And also the determination, like, you know, I'm going to do this no matter what you say, right? I think you highlighted that with Cal Hudson kind of blowing up the Starfleet uniform. But there were a lot of little moments that I liked in this, and I think that one of the things that I have to credit the writers for is they have a lot of dialogue that keeps the flow going, and also injects slight humor in places that allows me to have a little relief and realize that, you know, there's various layers. I liked particularly when Odo says to Sisko, how long should I keep him here? And Sisko responds, forever. And I just like that line, you know.
They love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What are you up to this time, Quark?
Yeah. How long should I keep him here? You know, that already implies that he's ready to let him go, right?
Yeah.
But and Sisko's line is just so clever. It's just like, forever. Like, you know, you guys are going to be doing this for the rest of this show. So just get used to it. But yeah, I there's a lot of moments like that I like. Quark has so many of them where he just has these one-liners. Uh, Mark Alimo, Gold Dukat, fantastic in this episode, and we really have to get,
there's a lot to talk about there.
There's so much, yeah.
The dynamic between Dukat and Sisko, the dynamic between Dukat and Kira, and the dynamic between Dukat and the rest of the Cardassians, and where sometimes he represents them, and sometimes he's like, wait, they don't even give a shit about, they don't care,
Yeah.
So even his relationship with Cardassians, Cardassia, and the Central Command, even that is volatile. It goes up and down, and it changes all over the place. And he has such a great relationship with Sisko and with Kira. It's just, it's almost hilarious how he talks to Kira and how she talks to him, and how they just they just want to zing each other all day. There was one point where, at the end, where Dukat does something, right, where he gets the whatever guys, what are they called? The Zeppelites to stand down or something.
Yeah, the Zeppelites sounds like the name of a rock group. I was thinking of the Zeppelites.
Some British punk rock band from 1979.
Yeah, yeah. I think they call that. We're the Zeppelites.
Yeah. No, but when he gets the Zeppelites to stand down, and he kind of looks over at Kira like, see what I did? And she looks away in disgust, and he goes, he just kind of smiles like, yep, I get like super content with himself, like pissing her off and being right in front of her felt even better to him than the victory they got.
And he oozes testosterone, right? He's
Gross.
Like this.
No, I'm just
No, he's just he's like this masculine guy who's just telling everybody what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So even in his own interrogation, he's like basically telling them they're not interrogating him properly because there's not enough torture involved. And since when do you know somebody basically asking to be more tortured harder because this sucks?
So one line that he says so beautifully is, because sometimes you try to picture it on the page and you say, wait, was that writing or was that acting? And it was kind of both. But when they're going to rescue Dukat, and then Dukat's like, why don't you shoot these guys, kind of thing, like, what are you talking to me? Just shoot.
Yeah, stop talking and shoot them.
Right. And then at one point, Sisko's talking to them, and he just goes, shoot them. Like, what? Just 2 words. Shoot. He says it like he's talking to a dog he's trying to train. He's just like, shoot them. What are you doing?
Yeah. What's all this conversation about?
Yeah. And he's like so blown away. Like, why are these people not dead yet? What's happening?
And I like the fact that this episode pairs them together, right? It pairs Sisko and Dukat.
Totally.
We get to see them working together. I think they made a pact at some point where he says, I'll get rid of them and you get rid of them. And they make a deal, right? I think Sisko says, deal. And it's like, I really enjoyed that.
And if you'll recall, one of the main reasons Sisko did that was because, remember, they were going to go, Sisko made the call to go save Dukat because Dukat was captured by the Maquis, and he wants to save the Dukat. And of course, Kira's like, what the are you doing? Why would we risk our lives for this guy that we hate? And Sisko says, Central Command, which is like the leadership of the Cardassians, he says, Central Command wants him dead. That's reason enough to want him alive. Kind of like the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing, That's
and they used that kind of logic throughout this episode. There was another similar kind of application of that logic with Quark when he was explaining to the Vulcan while they were in that captivity that he was saying, there's a price of pieces at an all-time premium right now. It's the best you can get it at, right?
Right.
And she's looking like confused, and he explains and breaks down why, everybody's got guns, everybody's got weapons. But now's the perfect time to negotiate a peace because, all the cards are on the table and this is the best opportunity.
Right. But nobody has an advantage, right?
And nobody has an advantage. But they're using that same kind of to me, it's like this kind of a logic to say, all right, this is the best way forward because of this logic, right? Um, I like the scene where Ducat is going on explaining about how Cardassian's justice system is perfect.
We don't make
And
mistakes.
we don't make, yeah, I love that. He was like, we don't make mistakes. And he says, in Cardassia, we know the verdict before the trial. And I was thinking, wow, that is, that happens here too. When you watch,
Mm,
the verdict is often sometimes before the trial, where we just like, yeah, that guy's guilty, right?
yeah,
We don't
due
know any facts. We just go on that, right?
right. Whereas
But
Cardassians, it almost seems like they're doing it out of like sadism. Like they almost just they know somebody's guilty, but they enjoy watching the process of putting that person away or something like
yeah,
almost like a sadistic value to it.
yeah, I kind of got the. See, I always think that the writers are playing off of what we're going through and experiencing already. So
Absolutely.
I think that they have a kind of jaded view of our justice system in general, and they're probably just highlighting that in 9 times out of 10, the verdict is in before the trial, and that's just how our own justice system functions. And then Sisko says, "Well, then why have a trial at all?" And Ducat's answer is, well, because of the pageantry, they like to
They
show.
enjoy it. It's
Yeah,
like a
they enjoy.
reality show to them.
Yeah, they like to see justice play out, right? The
Mm,
so-called justice. And I think of those kinds of things when you see, whatever it is. I don't want to pull a bad example, but we see somebody get arrested, we immediately say, "Oh, he's guilty of that." That's hang him up at the stakes and burn him, But you know, and then we don't really know all the details. We only know one side of the story or what we think we
right.
know. So then I think, oh yeah, is that really the case? Do we really just have this show of a trial when we already kind of feel like we're going to go lean one way or another, anyways?
Kind of like confirmation bias. You
Yeah,
already they're just people are just looking for confirmation of what they already believe. They just want
yeah,
validation. They want to be able to say, no, look, see, the person was tried, is convicted, so it kind of validates what they already want to
yeah. We let the process play out. It was, it was fair. They got the same
ish, fair-ish.
ish. Yeah, the same procedure occurred that normally occurs
You know?
in any other place. We procedurally got it right. Uh, there was a line that stood out to me too. Ducat says, "I should have." He says, "People, there's still people that think I should have killed every last Bajoran," and then he says, "Too late for that, unfortunately."
But see, that is the great line that the writers play between making Ducat just a straight up villain and making him a sympathetic character, because then you are led to believe, first of all, who knows if he's lying, but we are led to believe that Ducat didn't want to kill the Bajorans. Like he was the compassionate Cardassian. And he'll be the first to tell you, I treated my Bajorans so well. I treated my Bajoran slaves and
Yeah,
workers better than all the other people so he thinks,
yeah.
how can you hate me? I was so,
I let them eat
yeah,
lunch.
you can eat cake.
So
So
yeah,
yeah,
but you're right. The writers play that. They play that right
mhm,
really well. Where it's like, on one hand, he's this really sympathetic guy who was really nice to his Bajoran slaves, right? And he didn't kill every one of them, which could have been an option for him.
what a sweetie.
Yeah, and then yet he also shows you his brutal side here, saying, "Too late for that, unfortunately. Like if I could go back in time, I
Yeah,
would kill all of them."
yeah, exactly. It's a perfect. He really is a perfect character. And I don't know if they knew that they had that when they first created that, or if it was just like after the first couple episodes that they wrote him in, they're just like, man, I'm really starting to like this character. And they started, who knows? I don't know if they were planning on using him so much, but I think they really created a perfect character
Yeah, thanks to Ira and the guys that did the documentary, What We Left Behind. Uh, I think that they gave us a really good insight into the writer's room in that
there. Right.
documentary. and Ira bringing back the guys and getting to see the process unfold on the chalkboard and watching how ideas flow in these sessions was really insightful for me, because what I realized in that moment, in those, watching that documentary, was how much the writers essentially play the characters in the writer's room. So the same way that you get into your Jean-Luc Picard and you start saying your phrases, right? you do it. You do it. And you get into
accident.
but you get into the zone, and sometimes it just flies, right?
Sure.
And it's okay, because that's the emotion that you're caught into. And I think that the writers, when they're in the writer sessions doing these things, they get caught into it. And I could just see it would be so fun to play a Ducat, right? It's so fun to imagine what Ducat would say in these moments. Yeah, too late for that, unfortunately.
And there's so many times where they're just like, they're coming up with a line, they're like, oh my God, that is such a Ducat line. They're like, oh, that is so Ducat. Or they're like, oh, this is such an Odo thing to say, or Quark,
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And so I can see them loving to do the Quark lines, loving to do the Odo lines, and because these characters are so defined, right? And they have such distinct personalities. So you kind of, once you get it, and since they've created it, they get it. Once they get it, they can just really slip in and out of Quark, slipping out of Odo, slipping out of Ducat, and kind of voice what they would see in those moments,
Right. And I agree. Like, for me personally, watching that documentary, that was the most interesting and fascinating part. I mean, it was all an amazing documentary, but that writer's room thing, I think everybody just kind of had a little nerd squeal when we watched them, and the way they brainstorm and the way they talk about specific characters, because they love these characters. They created them. They watched them grow for 7 years. They're really attached and in tune with these characters. And it's really cool to watch them, like you say, connect to them. And, I think we're going over time. So we'll have to come back and talk about that in just a second. And we'll go over the trivioids that got tossed off to the side, if there are any good ones. We'll be right back with the seventh rule. Everybody, and welcome back to the seventh rule. It's Cirroc Lofton. Today we are covering Deep Space Nine's Season 2, Episode 21, the Maquis Part 2, where it gets awesome. As you know, quick trivioids that didn't make the beginning. We said Cal Hudson's uniform, Admiral Nechayev. Quark is embarrassed to discuss his personal life in the brig. He says it's a little embarrassing to talk about it here. If Central Command wants someone dead, then Sisko wants that person alive. Ducat has a way of shielding his thoughts. That was something where the Vulcan lady, the mind meld, and she just could not get in.
She couldn't break him. She's just like one of those guys. He's just solid.
And the last one was Sisko somehow finds the Maquis in a cave. That's something that kind of bothers me. It's one of my pet peeves in just about every show or Star Trek. I mean, we see it in Picard, we see it in Deep Space Nine, we see it in all of them. Like, the Maquis are hidden in a cave, and they have defense perimeters, they have sensors, they have technology, and Sisko and his friends just walk into their cave. Like, first of all, he finds them, he gets through, like, no problem. Oh, you just appeared into my secret hideout. No problem. How'd you find me? But that's always a funny Star Trek-ism. Right?
Yeah. And then I had another nitpick about that. So the three of them walk up into the cave. It was Sisko, Odo,
and Bashir.
Right? And they're literally walking, the three of them, like the Baywatch introduction, right? Like all
That's
three of them.
That's what I imagined too.
So they all come walking up, like two flanked on either side of Sisko as he walks forward. And it's just like, well, technically that wouldn't be the military way to approach a group of rebels in a cave. You'd spread out, one guy over there, one guy sniper.
Right.
And you would kind of roll up in a certain kind of way. You wouldn't, and just
maybe with more people than just you, one security guy, and a doctor. Like,
and the doctor. Why did they bring the doctor for?
No, in case they needed some dirty lines, I guess.
in case there were some hot chicks that wanted to
Yeah, he's gonna
offended.
go. Oh, a Vulcan female. Hello.
Would you like to meld my more? No,
You
so
should be
yeah.
writing for them.
So yeah, that was kind of like a little cheesy the way they walked into the cave. I thought so too. We got to see a little bit of Odo turn into like a T1000, where he reached his arm out and lassoed the guy.
Some Terminator reference right there. Pretty nice. I like it.
Yeah, it was before. So it's pre T1000 might have to pay some royalties over to DS9.
Was it now? This was 94.
I think it was before. Yeah,
right around the same year. I mean, it may.
No, this is Terminator 2 was a T1000.
Yeah, but I feel like that was right around 94, 95, 94. Anyway.
It was close.
We'll say Star Trek did it first, regardless.
Yeah.
What are you eating, an orange?
Aren't you glad?
Yeah.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I'm keeping my vitamin C up while
good
viruses are going around.
There's a virus going around?
Yeah, somebody said something about it. Oh, so this line, my mind to your mind, my thoughts to your thoughts, that's like an old thing, right?
Right. That's what the Vulcans say when they do a mind meld. That's kind of, started with Nimoy and Spock doing that. And they just kind of put their hand on them like that, and tickle their cheeks.
Yeah. I'll just let that one slide. So, no, I like the. So this other thing I wanted to talk about was these proxy wars, and this is the actual thing that happens, right? So two countries, for example, that don't want to be in a direct war with each other, they arm people to fight each other so that they can actually do the war for themselves, right? So they don't get involved, but they're involved.
Which still happens very much today.
To this day, right? We're watching
very presently. Yeah.
Yeah, we watch the fighters in the Middle East. We're working with Al Qaeda and these guys and this guy, and sometimes we're fighting with them, and sometimes we're
and then the big countries are like, well, I don't have. Well, all I did was give them weapons.
What?
I don't know what they're going to do with it. Maybe they're just going to carve them out and make houses out of these missiles. I don't know.
Yeah, I had no idea what they were going to do with it. So yeah, this kind of thing's still happening to this day, right? So it's like, I think that's another way that DS9 has found a topic that is timeless. And they really tap into these timeless topics that still kind of, you can rip them out of any kind of headline from almost any period of time. And I really think that's one of their geniuses, is the ability to be able to do that.
Right. Totally agree with that. And that's what makes the Maquis storyline so good, is that it doesn't have to be just a one-off episode. Like, you can really use it like Ducat, like as a recurring thing. And the good news is that there is going to be more Maquis stuff coming. There's definitely more Maquis storyline happening a little later, and it's always good and it's always cool. It's a well-crafted story. And I don't know if they planned on having more, or if, again, they just did it and were like, wow, that worked really well. Let's bring it back. Let's expand on it, because it's a very successful storyline, I think. I think it was really well done.
It's funny because one thing I wanted to write, I wrote down that I want to highlight, is Gul Dukat. When he speaks about, to Sisko, he tells Sisko, "You have my office." And this is, I think, the second time, maybe the third time he's reminded Sisko. And the way he says it is always in a way like, don't forget who you're talking to.
You're right. It's, there's certain people that, and we all know somebody like this, or many people like this, that they're borderline bullies, but they do it in a way to where the second you call them out on it, they go, "What? I was just kidding. It was just a joke," And
I didn't mean it like that. What do you mean?
It's kind of like that, where he's like, "Hey, you have my office." And if Sisko is like, "What's that supposed to mean?" He's like, "Oh, no, I'm just, we're just joking."
It's a matter
around.
of fact, isn't it?
Yeah,
I'm just stating the facts. So you have my office. It's nothing big. It's just But
And
he's throwing a dig at him because the other time he used it before was in the same kind of a dig, like, don't think you're special because you remember I sat in that seat, the exact seat you're sitting.
Right. And if you'll recall how that line started, it was actually a really good scene, was when Ducat and Sisko are talking in the office, of course. And Ducat, they talk about something they agree on, and Ducat says, I wonder what else we have in common. Cardassians are always they're like the used car salesman of maybe that's the Ferengi, I don't know. But maybe he's selling you life insurance. He's like, I wonder what else we have in common. And Sisko says, very little, I'd imagine. He says,
yeah.
And that's when Ducat says, well, other than the fact that you have my office,
and he always says it like that, like he's almost waiting for him to say something, right?
Daring him to, yeah.
He's daring him to, and he's also reminding him and nudging him just a little bit, like, you got my leftovers. It's kind of like saying my leftovers for, sloppy seconds.
I was going to say, is he going to say sloppy seconds?
It's almost, that's the way he says it. He says it with that same connotation. Like, you got my leftovers. You got my sloppy seconds. You realize that this is my office. Mm-hmm. So I like the way he does that. The other thing I really liked was when Quark was getting interrogated by Sisko and Odo, and he starts to give out the list of things I think they wanted a force field. And 1,000 photons.
And a whole bunch of weapons and cannons.
Yeah, and a couple of photon torpedoes.
Poison, like biochemical weapons.
Nothing.
Some really hungry cheetahs.
And then he says, what? I didn't do anything. I just introduced him to somebody. And
he didn't even sell it. His hands are so clean because he's like, I didn't even sell it. I just introduced them for a very good price.
Right. And then he goes on to say, I'm willing to testify if you let me, if you need me to testify. And then he says, and let me know who else needs testifying again.
That's called rolling over.
That's called the weakest rollover. It's called those are snitches get stitches where I'm from.
He's like, hey man, you just let me out of this bridge. We'll talk about it. No problem. You can keep that Vulcan in there. I never really liked her.
Never. Yeah, her money wasn't as good as the other money I get. But yeah, that was funny to me. Just that whole little, like, is there anybody else you want me to testify against? Just let me know.
Yeah, that's Quark all day long. That's Quark in every. Have we ever seen? I don't know. I'm sure we haven't seen it yet, but I'm wondering if we've seen any banter or any scenes between Quark and Ducat. I feel like, because Quark and Garrett can have some good conversation, very good ones. But I feel like Ducat would kind of look at Quark like he's a roach. Like, why would I even talk to you?
Yeah, I don't think he would be dealing with him to any capacity. We had an O'Brien sighting in this episode, and we also had a Bolian sighting. I thought you were going to bring it up, but I had to deal with myself.
Well done. Absolutely right. Yes, sir.
You saw the Bolian, right?
Yes, I'm glad you did too.
Yeah, he came in guns blazing, ready to take Sisko.
They had a whole group. I mean, there was a Bolian, there was a female Klingon I saw back there. There was a whole eclectic bunch.
Yeah, it was the regular Black Eyed Peas. And so, there was another moment that I want to bring out, though, because I really love this moment. Ducat kind of gets soft for a second, and he genuine. I think he was genuine in the moment, but he says, thank you for my rescue to Sisko.
Just for a second, right?
Just for a second. He softens up and he's like, he thanks him because he knows that if he didn't come, Cardassians weren't coming, right?
Right.
And then Sisko says something which I think is like one of the best lines. And that was, I'm sure you would have done the same for me.
Which is a total jab. Total jab.
It's one of Sisko's jabs, and it's so good because you get to see Sisko kind of moves away off of the eye line, eyesight, or eye path of Ducat, then gives himself a little like sigh type of, oh, I kind of like that one. Right?
Yeah. Well, that line is one of those very layered lines. Again, written well and acted well, because I feel like, there's the on the surface thing, which is bullshit. He doesn't think that he would have done it for him. But there's a secondary thing. The secondary thing is obviously that the main one saying, you wouldn't have done the same for me because you're a jerk, and here's a jab right at you, right? But I feel like there's a tertiary thing even below that, which is, if the roles are reversed, you better do the same for me someday.
That's how I took it as too.
Yeah.
I like the way you just broke that down, and I felt the third part of it more than any other part.
And that's, you're right. That's the most poignant one,
Yeah, and that meant to me, he left the door open for the future. It was like he placed a seed there for the future. I don't know when the time will come when Dukat will have Sisko's life in his hands and make the return favor, but Sisko plants the seed. He doesn't say to him, "You wouldn't have done it for me, you asshole," which he could have easily have said, right? And it would have been true. But he assumes the positive, even though it could have had like a little punch behind it. But it's still, he gives him the benefit of the doubt,
right?
And he says it in this coy way where it's like, "Would you have done the same for me?" Or now in the future, these words will resonate inside your head. He kind of put those words in his head, right?
Right, because plus you look at Sisko, he's been dealing with Dukat for about 2 years now, and he knows Dukat really wants that station back, and he knows Dukat thinks he has unfinished business, and he wants that office back, and he has unfinished business with the Bajorans, and he knows at this point that they are intertwined, and there's no doubt in Sisko's mind that he will see Gul Dukat again. And there's no doubt in his mind that he will see Dukat in a time of war or in a time of espionage or something. So you're right. He plants his seed inside of Dukat, and then because he knows that they're beyond a shadow of a doubt that their story is not done. The ballad of Sisko and Dukat is not over yet,
and he's going to need him later on down the road. And I think that was a good gesture by just those words, the way it was phrased. I'm sure you would have done the same for me. And they even cut to Dukat thinking like, would I have done the same for him? And then he's thinking, damn, now I owe this guy one.
Yeah.
And it was like a lot of those thoughts were going through Dukat's head, and I just like that. It was a small little exchange there, but it meant so much. And I think once again, it planted a seed for the future. Sisko kind of planting that seed of, hey,
remember that,
homie.
Yeah.
Remember that. There was another thing there that I thought was just, Mark Alaimo, as highlighted in the documentary, is a fantastic performer and did a great job with this character. He is both lovable and hateable at the same time at very extreme levels, which is not an easy thing to do for any performer, any actor, to make you really hate them, but then really like them. And it's hard to do those, to cover both of those.
Right. And he was the first character that I ever felt that way about, where I was like, wow, the more I'm supposed to hate this guy, the more I love him. And I've said many times before that's what got me to kind of get into an acting career was Mark Alaimo's performance as Gul Dukat.
Yeah, he's fantastic. And hats off to Mr. Alaimo. But I wanted to say there was a great line that he delivers in this episode, and he says, "I'm not just any Cardassian. I'm Gul Dukat.
With all the machismo."
Yeah, commander of the Second Order. He gets into it, and I just love the way he says that. It's like, it reminds me of Bond, James Bond.
No, I was thinking of Breaking Bad. if you've ever seen Breaking Bad.
I have.
He's like, with that scene where he's like, "You know who I am. Say my name." Goddamn right.
Yeah, and we got a third rule of acquisition.
Right, we got another one. What was it? Rule of acquisition number 3: never spend more for an acquisition than you have to. Sounds reasonable.
Sounds reasonable. Speaking of which, I think an acquisition that you were going to acquire raised the price on you by a few amounts at the dealership. Did you ever resolve that car dealership issue?
Yeah, somewhat.
Okay.
Cirroc is referring to a car dealership that shall remain nameless, even though they should not. That actually completely reneged.
They agreed to a price, and then when you came to purchase the vehicle, they wanted to raise the price.
And then I started to think, car salesmen should get a bad rap. Some of these guys,
one day they'll get a bad rap.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. Sometimes I'm starting to think that maybe they're using like tactics to trick people, but maybe that's just me. I don't. It's kind of like on that.
You should have broke out your rule of acquisition. So, third rule of acquisition: never spend more for an acquisition than you have to.
Right. Or I could have. It reminds me of that South Park movie back in the day, where there's Satan, and Satan's like doing all this stuff to everybody and just, killing things and turning hell upside down or whatever. And then one guy says, that Satan guy's a real jerk. Kind of like that.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Anyway, I think we went off track a little bit, but
no, we did. We did. So once we get over to South Park, we've really
we've gone all the way to Colorado, man.
Yeah, we're off the rails. Yeah. No, there was another moment too. I mean, Ducat's full of lines, and I just write them all down because I don't know. I feel like I'm just transcribing what he says because it's so good. But he said, "I thought you were a strong commander, sentimental fool." It was like the dude just saved your life. He went through all this, and now you're cursing him out for not just. I think there was a moment where Ducat says they were giving their strategy on how to go about it, and he says, "Well, if it was me, I'd just kill everybody on board and
kill them,
drag the ship over to the station.
Obviously, kill them."
They're like, "Oh yeah, I think Kira says something like, yeah, that's real subtle there."
Wouldn't it be? I mean, it really seems like it would be the coolest acting job to play a Cardassian. I mean, more than
I thought about it, but
more than Klingons, I feel like Cardassians would be the most fun to play.
I think that it could be depending on the personality that you have.
Sure.
I'll give an example. This episode, the head of the Cardassians came to visit the station and basically say, "We're not looking for Ducat."
Yeah, Legate Parn, which is kind of like an admiral, in Central Command.
And I don't fear him as much. He doesn't have the same menacing feel to his presence, right? I don't.
He just showed up, said, "Here's what's going on." He didn't have people around him. He didn't, play any tricks. You're right. It was very on the nose. It wasn't very subtle. It wasn't, there was no subtext to it. You're right.
No, it was just like, "Yeah, I'm here. Big deal. Yep. We'll see you later. All right. Bye." And I didn't get anything from it. I didn't get any, clever little back.
Oh my God.
Man down.
No,
I need backup.
I get you. You're right. Like, for a Cardassian character, it was very on the nose. It wasn't like this fully developed character with subtleties and with sliminess and
arrogance. I mean, you would think there would be something that they would add extra to him to make it like to get that across. Even if he had like an entourage behind him, just a bunch of guys standing there with their arms crossed,
There was one moment he did that I thought was good, but I wasn't sure if that was an acting decision or if it was on the script. But what that was there was like a dramatic pause where he's saying some things as they walk, and rather than finishing the line there, he kind of just stops and, hits the button, opens the door, then turns back around and delivers his line. That could have been on the script, on the page. So I don't really know, but that was the one thing that stood out where I was like, oh, that was interesting.
Oh, the beat that he played, playing that hesitation beat
again, but that could have been on the page. It could have been like ... He turns away, he opens this, then faces back, and then finishes his line.
That could have been on the page. It also could have been something the director said, why don't you deliver this line here instead of here? Sorry about that, man. I'm just all over the place today.
We've got a rainy day in LA right now, and I don't know if you've heard, but people in LA, when it rains, it's like we don't know what to do with ourselves. I mean, phones are flying all over the place.
It's extinction level stuff when it rains. We can't function at the same speed. Yeah, but I think I'm going to get this right. My suction is not sucking. I'm not sucking hard enough today.
I'm going to go ahead and leave that alone. We're going to spend the final 3 minutes of this podcast like we didn't hear that. Let me find a line real quick.
No, that was funny because there was another line here where Dukat says, anyone can blow up a ship, right? And I love the way he delivered that line because he was really like crapping on their whole little resistance. He's like, you guys are sucking at this. Right. Anyone could blow up a ship. You haven't done anything special. Look your enemy in the eye. That takes stomach, and take his life from him face to face while he's, looking you in the eye. I thought that was like another he has these moments where he's just like the coldest, cold-blooded guy in the world.
Right.
And then he has these moments where you're like, man, I kind of like this guy.
Love it. Yeah. And then Sisko had a really good line at the end where Dukat, as usual, with his normal delivery of just dripping with sarcasm, he says to Sisko, he says, "You disappoint me." And Sisko says, "Don't expect me to lose any sleep over it."
Yeah.
Oh, those guys, man.
Those guys. One thing that also stood out to me, I don't know if this popped out to you at all, but, this was the way that Kira stands kind of stood out to me in this episode. I was like, wow, she has this posture about herself that's like so aggressive. It reminds me of...
That's the exact word I was waiting for. That's exactly what it is. It's aggressive. It's confrontational.
Yeah, when they line up two boxers before the fight and they're like face to face, right? And they take that photo, right? And it's just like the day before the fight, and it's like the press conference to see. She stands like she's one of those boxers.
I was noticing the same thing, but I'll tell you the exact scene where I noticed it. It was when Sisko and Leggett Parn were walking, and they're having a conversation, and she walks up in between them and gets in Sisko's face, and she's like, "Well, they can't," and she's just like right there, man. And I'm like, "Wow, that's really cool. I love that." Because it really shows that who she is. It shows she's not afraid, and she doesn't shy away from conflict. If Sisko thought it was too much, he would tell her to back down. She's not worried about breaking a few eggshells. She's just like, I'm going to tell him what it is. If he doesn't like it, he can let me know.
And she has this stance that is just like I said, it's just like chest out, shoulders back, just reared up to fire off a couple jabs real quick.
Ready to take on the world. Yeah.
Yeah. I just love it about her. She's just got this really aggressive stance that she's not backing down. She's coming chest forward. I just like it about her. And it's one of the things that you can tell that is something that she's chosen to do to make her character that way. Because she doesn't walk around. She doesn't walk around like that, in normal.
No. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's absolutely a choice. So we've got to run now. We're going to go to the free-for-all. Before we go to the free-for-all, we do want to give a quick shout-out to all of our associate producers, Mr. Rex Wood, Dennis Koch, Homer Frizzell, Eve England, Kat R. King, Yvette Blackmon, and Dr. Marie Segal. Thank you all for joining us. Stay tuned for the free-for-all, and we'll be right back on 7th Rule. Keep your ears open, by the way. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the 7th Rule. This is the free-for-all with Commander Homer Frizzell, with Kat R. King, Heather Jordan, and Marie Segal. Cirroc Lofton. My name's Ryan T. Husk. How's everybody doing?
Good. And Yvette Blackmon sends her love, but she's stuck in a meeting.
Oh, nuts. What kind of meeting?
I don't know.
Oh.
Probably something very important.
Probably an important meeting.
Here's a topical kind of thing to discuss. I was just before we start recording, I was thinking about the phage because of what's going on right now in the world. The phage. Have you guys seen that that meme, that graphic, when somebody does a dumb post on like social media, like Facebook? Somebody will comment a picture of one of the Vidians, and it says that post was so bad it gave me the phage.
I think you made that up just now, Ryan.
No, I've seen it. It's funny. Homer's seen it.
No.
How did I miss that?
See?
It's funny.
See?
No.
Nice.
Homer, are you going to tell us about this cruise, man? What happened?
And about the little Jake behind you.
Yeah, what did you do?
Did you bring those action figures with you?
Yeah, I did, but I only took a couple pictures. Here we are. It's the CBS studio, and Ken Mitchell and his posse were handing out flyers for the heroes, and specifically here, the villains rave. And so I decided Jake and Nog wanted to have a photo of them. There they are.
So cute.
They did not come with me to the rave, but it was probably the high point of the cruise. Ken Mitchell.
For those of you listening in, behind Homer's, he took a picture of a tiny Nog action figure next to a tall.
It looks like Nog is pointing at my boner or something.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird.
Oh my god!
I hadn't thought of that, but that could be.
Now that's an action figure.
And to call Nog an action figure would be incorrect because the entire figure is static.
Look, Jake.
Yeah.
Oh my god! Oh, shots fired! He just totally next level.
So actually, that was actually a topic that came up in.
My mom listens to the show.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Anne-Marie's mom, Julie Segal.
Why did we start recording? I don't get it.
Wait a minute. Anne-Marie's mom is Mary Ann?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah, sorry to bring that up to all the moms out there that are listening.
Sorry that your boys have penises.
Yeah, it's just he's pointing directly. I was just following the line of sight. That's all.
Yeah, that's true.
Just following the line of sight.
So, Homer,
did you ever see
whose elbow is that?
Whose elbow?
Yeah.
It looks like there's an elbow in the back of the table.
Yeah, I think that's actually the back of a couch.
No, that's an elbow.
Okay, it might
looks like an elbow.
You can be whatever you want.
Where's the rest of the person?
That's an
That could be whatever.
elbow,
Like
and
somebody's
it's
like
pointing to something else, and I don't know what.
Oh, okay.
Nothing else.
Anyway, sorry, what were you saying, Heather?
that. There's a scene in the documentary where Cirroc is talking about the joys of puberty while filming in a onesie.
Yeah.
And that was a debate that we had mentioned it before, but like I was telling everyone at like the Christmas party, I was like, no, Cirroc talks about his boner. And they're like, no, that doesn't happen. You made that out. I'm like, no, it happened. And I was like going through the video, and finally I was like, see, right there.
Yeah.
Cirroc's talking about it. And they thought I was like having some sort of like fantasy about and I was like, no, it was in the documentary.
Yeah, it was in there.
Sorry,
it's a true story. It's a true story, but puberty happens for all of us.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just checking the time right now so I know how much I need to edit out.
Oh.
So far, I think you've got a lot to edit out.
Pretty much everything after
we're going to start all over again. Everyone back to first position.
Except
Do
that
you
we
want to reintroduce us? Is that what you want to do?
Okay. So,
what's our
Anne-Marie
question?
Segal, what's the question of the day?
Oh.
No, you have to have one.
Okay.
I left it up to you.
What is your favorite, since you mentioned that Anne Marie's mom's name is Marie Anne.
It's
Mary Anne.
Mary Anne.
Who is your favorite Star Trek parent?
Duh. Loxana Troy.
I know that.
My favorite of all time.
I think we can guess Cirroc's too, but tell us why, Anne Marie.
Yeah, don't call her Anne. She doesn't like that.
She's such an anti-Mame character, and that's one of my favorite movies / musicals. And I want to be her when I grow up.
Ooh, I love those pretzels.
I just love the way that she loves life and just like really embraces it. She's wonderful.
Oh, who's
My fault.
Oh, I was like,
Man
who's
down.
choking?
Man down.
What about you, Heather? Who's your favorite Star Trek parent or parental figure?
You know, it's so hard to choose one, but like my first thing is probably Beverly.
Beverly.
Beverly. Say that. Oh my God! I need any opportunity for you to say that. It's so fun.
Why Beverly?
I don't know. Like, I just resonated with her, like, just from the beginning. Like, you know, I love the relationship between Jake and Commander Sisko. Like, that's a great relationship. But Beverly Crusher just has something about her. She's very, I think she's a good mother on the show, but she's also, like, very much a woman of her own right. She's not just a mother. She's got a lot of parts that she plays, being, you know, and then her son, you know, becomes she makes sure her son is a big part of her life, even though she's like a big doctor on a, you know, huge starship. She has a very big role on the ship. And then, of course, you know, we've got her in her yoga gear. So, which is what Kat and I are supposed to cosplay as if I can make it to Las Vegas.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So far, these are the two ladies that have been mentioned, Troy's mom and Beverly. So,
Beverly.
Kat, who's your favorite parental figure in Star Trek?
Well, she never had any children, but she was certainly a mommy to her crew.
I know where this is going.
Oh, yay!
Captain effing Janeway.
One time she did have some lizards.
Yeah,
that's right.
She did actually mother. She is a mother of
She's a lizard mother, yeah.
Lizard mummy. She's a lizard mummy.
I cannot remember.
That's a great answer. I love that.
Mom. Well, I like actually because
I
we
love
just
when
watched
Q
Bliss.
says it. Yeah.
Because we just watched the episode Bliss. I would say 7 of 9 does a great job with Naomi Wildman, and I love watching that episode. I've seen it like maybe 3 or 4 times in the past, so it's been a while, but it was sweet, just very sweet. So I think 7 has, well, and then we, of course, if you're watching Picard, she definitely goes on to have a lot more maternal of a role in her life.
Man, that one scene I can't talk about because it's spoilers, but I was like,
I know, the one time I can't spoil, but...
like,
what about you, Homer? Who's your favorite parental figure?
He's going to say Cirroc.
No, I think I know the guess.
I had one that I initially thought of, and then I went with I have a different answer.
Let's see if
Tell us both.
So do you want to hear the first one I came up with?
Yes.
Yes. So it would be Archer, and his son, sort of Porthos.
I knew that was one of mine, but that's not the one I thought you were going to say.
Yeah, but instead, let's see if I can do this.
Let's see.
He's Googling. Oh no.
Oh, that is the cutest picture of all time. Who's the cutest boy ever?
You just told Cirroc's answer.
Well, that has to be his answer, and it has to be mine as well. Ben Sisko had a son, a young son, going through all this change, raising him by himself in a dangerous place, and also looking out for him, and was good enough to allow him to choose what he wanted to do, even though he really wanted him to go into Starfleet. So not only was he really good at doing that, but also was a good listener and cared for what he wanted. So I have to go with Sisko.
And a great role model.
I can come back to it, but there was something that I heard that the actor say about his role that really just struck me so strongly. Is it okay if I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
And not word for word, but he said that as a Black man, that he wanted to show a good relationship as a father figure, not someone that was like that kind of like ghetto gangster style, that it was so prevalent in TV, that he wanted to have like to show what a good relationship between father and son could be on TV. And I just loved that as he's an actor, like that was so important to him, was to show that role. And it really came through in the show.
Totally.
Yeah, I agree. But great. That was a great observation.
He was very clear about that. Yeah.
It was actually
he wanted
like
to be like
actual...
I want to say Bill Cosby, when Cosby provided that place for a young African American man in America to have that role model, didn't have that, like you said, vibe to them. Really, really good comment. I like that observation.
Which brings us to you, Cirroc.
Yeah, that's true.
The boy in question.
He was totally good about that, and was aware of that at the time, which is pretty awesome on his behalf. He was, certainly a student of acting and film and television, and not just a student, but a professor of it, and was understandable for him to kind of know that the imagery for Black males wasn't one that was usually positive. And he took it upon himself to make those decisions in his performances to be the positive role model type person that wasn't ignorant and was well spoken and educated. So it was important for him. It's kind of a hallmark throughout his career. You see that in a lot of the performances that he gave. When you talk about American History X, for example, and the role he played in that film.
That's right.
With Edward Norton.
Great movie.
You look at his performances in Roots. You look at what he did in the show Spencer for Hire, which eventually became A Man Called Hawk. Even in that format, he made sure that this Hawk character, who was from the streets, still spoke a certain way, still had a certain level of grace and class about himself. So it was something that Avery was always consistently vigilant to make sure that he was representing Black people in the best light possible.
Absolutely.
He definitely was like the best actual father on Star Trek, or mother. And I love like Cirroc when you talk about like how he was on the set with you when Brock Peters came. I thought that was so poignant. Like, I don't know what episode it was, but just the fact that like
Peters,
the fact that like he recognized it and recognized the importance of what he was doing in history. It was just really beautiful.
It was beautiful.
Still is relevant to today in television, to have a good parental figure, father, being, not just being a Black man, but that's still something that, a lot of times on TV, we don't always see somebody being wholesome. We see like a lot of drama and a lot of problems. And like, we see parents who are drug dealers on shows, and we see parents, that strong familial like standard is not always present even in today's TV.
Right.
So,
especially nowadays when they're trying to get edgier and edgier, they're probably showing that even less.
Yeah, or like
it's kind of the whole
damage,
idea
where
like
it damages
art should
their
imitate
relationship.
life, and if life is always like this, we're only going to show this side of life, and we're not going to show like the other sides and facets of the human condition that are rooted in rising above your circumstances and like rising above and beyond iniquity and trying to surpass that. In other words, not giving into your origins. So if you come from a poor background, or you come from this or that you can grow be above and beyond them. You're not resigned to like classlessness or a poverty mindset, and that dictates or governs your behavior. So that's really
you don't have to keep a life of crime going. And I think that it's just that sort of bad stuff is just more entertainment. So it just gets so much, we have documentaries on Netflix about horrible events that happen between children and families. There's been a few. There's a huge one that's out right now. I don't know if I should specifically mention it, but
Probably
we
not.
see all of the bad parenting because it's so much entertainment, and we need to see more good parenting on television.
Yeah.
He also handles Jake's penchant for Dabo girls very well.
Ryan,
We
what's
discovered
yours?
that. Well, I do think that, I think it's fairly hands down. Everybody would agree that Sisko is the best all around as far as like a role model of a father figure. I think that Catherine Janeway definitely was a maternal figure. Absolutely.
Right.
And I was thinking about Archer and
Porthos, yeah.
Porthos. But then it also reminded me of Data and Spot because what was it, Generations, when when Data finds Spot and he actually breaks down, he's like, I thought I'd lost you. It's the cutest moment ever. But I will say, my pick is Rom, because Rom seems like
brilliant.
He was the only parent that seemed the most changed by his or her child. He allowed his child to influence him and brought him kind of into Starfleet in a secondary capacity and became, an engineer. And so he was, parents sometimes lead by example too, not always saying this is the right way to go and this is how you have to do things, but also saying, hey, I can change too. I can learn, I can grow, and sometimes you can teach me. Now, this is being said by somebody that doesn't have any children, so this is just an observer, an observation. But that's what I thought was
a
really
good.
Well, then you have Worf. Then you could apply that to Worf.
Yeah,
maybe a little
Worf
bit.
And Alexander.
You didn't get that from. I don't think that Molly had enough screen time in DS9 to really. You didn't really get to see Molly develop as a character.
Do your impression of Molly, Kat.
Keiko? Molly?
No, Molly. No.
No.
I don't want I want mommy.
Yeah. So I don't think we got to see enough of that. So yeah, I say that's true. Max, I think Ron gets a good amount of character development, so that his writing gets good. I think Keiko we saw Keiko grow and change a little bit, but I didn't get to see the dynamic of the mother-daughter relationship change or grow as Molly aged. So yeah, I think that's true. But Worf maybe a little
push Rom too. Like he pushed him to say, "Look, Dad, you're good. You're amazing. This isn't for profit, but this is what you're good at, and you need to do it. You're he said like you could be a starship engineer if you just wanted to." And I think that was really important that Nog grew from his interaction with the humans, and then he pushed his father. It's exactly what Ryan just said, but it was amazing. That is true.
So, Homer, we haven't heard much from you. We got a couple minutes left. I want to do a rapid fire question starting with you.
No. Didn't we do that already?
Because we were talking about Cirroc and I earlier. What were you going to say, Homer? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to, let's pretend we're flipping this around. So who was the best child in Deep Space Nine? Or the best son? Brilliant. I think that could be contentious.
That's obviously
you too, man.
Perhaps a future
because
episode.
every single person that's ever been born is a son or daughter. But
those that were portrayed as children on the show.
Okay, all right.
That's it.
Do you have an answer for us?
No.
It's obviously Jake and Nog.
See the fireworks.
Jake and Nog.
That's two people.
That's all right. I'll accept the answer. Ding, ding, ding. The judges say yes.
Two have become one. Mm-hmm.
Our panel of judge says yes.
The humans.
Ooh, his.
I still think that the most contentious is probably between Q and his son, or Luoxana and Deanna.
Yeah, Luoxana.
Yeah, that's very stressful.
Man, can we talk about Picard though? Like,
no,
oh my God.
Like,
no.
I mean the child in Picard. No, we can't talk about that
in
child.
Rascals.
That's what. In Rascals.
No,
there are rails, and then there are us. We're over there.
I love the relationship between Troy and Riker's child and themselves.
Okay.
I can't remember her name.
Kestra.
That's right.
Her middle name is Oil.
No, it was Snow White.
Nope.
Cirroc, our panel of judges says no.
No, you told me it was Cell White.
I agree.
Her other middle name is Cell White. Yeah.
Cell White.
It
was Cass. Okay, never mind. I'm not even gonna.
I'm not co-signing on that.
Cirroc, favorite child that was depicted or on?
Oh man, this is a hard one for me.
Homer asked the tough questions.
Yeah,
it's a tough one.
I mean, look at that.
Gotta think about it.
He
Really
doesn't
gotta
want
think
to
on
say
it.
himself, but
I gotta think
but he
on
does
it.
want to say himself.
I would say
Just do it.
I will say Jake and Nog
Yeah.
as a unit.
Got it correct.
they screw each other. Like
Yeah, because it takes a community to raise somebody. So we were each other's go-tos. I think of my childhood. I think of my friends growing up. I don't think of myself just by myself. Think about the experiences I had with people, the friends and family. So
we did actually
see Picard's.
Thank you.
Kid. We saw Picard's kid in like a Q dream. This could happen. Future sequence. And he's like, "Oh, Father, shall we sing?"
Oh, was it a Christmas?
Generation.
Oh, Daddy. Yeah. Oh, it was like Uncle. Oh, it was like in Generations, kind of like that.
When his family became a guitar.
What about Soji, the Destroyer?
Yeah. Wait a minute. We're not allowed to talk about that.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Well, we know about Elisa.
No spoilers. That's what we can't talk about.
We're not going to spoil anything, but she's technically Data's kid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some say. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm so confused by that.
Oh, we're going to include Picard now in this.
Okay, so now the rapid fire question.
Okay, what's the rapid fire?
Rapid fire question is, Cirroc and I were talking about what would be the most fun alien to portray as an actor. So, in one word or less, what would be the alien you would like to portray as an actor? Go ahead, Marie Segal.
I have no idea.
Oh God.
I would say Betazoid.
Okay, good. You'd be a good one. What about you, Heather?
This was a question we had before. I just want to point that out.
Oh.
I think so. I think we said, what alien would you want to be, not portray as an actor, but very close. You're right.
Man, it's hard to be. Okay, so as an actor, which I am not, do you want to portray the subtle alien or the big, blue hair, tentacles alien? You know what I mean? I want to say Q because he's so out there. There's the cute, they just snap their fingers and do things, but it's still a human. It's still not much going on in terms of costume or acting.
Right. You know what Q's middle name is? T.
Don't stop.
What about you?
Oh God.
What about you, Homer?
Oh my God.
I people who are laughing are encouraging Ryan.
Yeah,
this is you don't know what you're
Don't do it.
This is terrible.
Don't do it.
Andorian.
Andorian.
Oh.
Yeah, I think it would be.
Why Andorian?
So I think it would be fun. I think that being all in blue as an actor, assuming I have acted recently, which I haven't, but I did a little bit way back. I think throwing on those antennae and white hair and blue skin would be liberating as an actor, and you could work through that and do some things you might not be able to do as yourself in your own skin per se. So I think it'd be fun.
Totally.
Awesome outfits, great camaraderie.
Awesome outfits, sure.
Love it.
Hang out with Jeffrey Combs, maybe.
Yes.
What about you, Kat?
As an actor, which alien race I would want to portray?
Yeah.
Difficult question.
You probably Borg, because I connect first of all, as an actor myself, but as a soldier, I connect very quickly, easily with the ex-Borg thing, the whole 7 of 9 thing now.
Okay, let's enjoy this a little more.
So much spoilers.
What alien race as a Borg? Because remember, the Borg are not necessarily. So which one?
Definitely like Trill or Betazoid would be really fun to play. The Trill Society was really interesting to me on DS9, and I really the whole rejoined episode. That helped give us more insight into like what they culturally believe in, and I thought that was fascinating. So I would love to delve into that.
Awesome. Good. Cirroc?
Now, would the trill be assimilated or the person hosting the trill be assimilated?
Such a good question.
I was going to say the person.
Is that a good question? Did I come up with one?
That's a great question.
Right?
I want to see the slug come out with the little eye.
Oh my god!
The slug gets its own little ocular implant.
That would be great.
Cute.
Just like
I'll bring that to LTLD.
That is
fashion myself
actually
a little.
such a meta question because, like, does it reject the symbiote or? Like
they would love the trill, wouldn't they? Because the trill have all those lifetimes to assimilate too, all that extra
the memory,
knowledge, and
wow, we just opened a can of worms.
That is so
slugs.
Like
we opened a can of symbiotes.
Oh my God.
No offense to the trill. I mean, that might have been racially a little xenophobic. Maybe
tell it to the menu tender pools.
Cirroc, what's your answer?
My answer is it looks like Sisko's been eating a powdered donut in that picture or something.
I noticed that too.
His lips don't look. The lips don't match his face. It looks like he has blackface on.
Oh my god, that's horrible.
No, it's oyster shell lipstick from MAC.
Oh, is that
obviously?
We got it at that, like when they set up the thing at STLV.
Yeah, so something is off with the lighting on that shot.
Yeah, I think it's the lighting.
Because like Jake's cheek there is awfully highlighted.
Everybody's just gonna look at Jake because he's so cute.
It's something wrong with the way the light is hitting his lips. I was thinking like there's a thing that they have as a condition.
Or maybe he's going skiing and you just put like a ton of chapstick on.
Yeah, something.
As we're talking, he's Father of the Year.
Do you have Cirroc, do you have an alien you'd like to portray?
I think it'd be fun to be a Klingon. Actually, not every day because I hear that the makeup is something that everybody bitches about, but it just seems fun to watch, just to walk around all padded up and just like drink beers and hang out.
Yeah, just be kind of crazy and like a little loud, and everyone thinks that's cool or fun. You know what I mean?
I kind of would like that.
Break things and nobody bats an eye.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sing opera.
Expect it from you. You know?
Exactly. Play my accordion.
Sing opera, as Homer says. Yeah. I'd be a Cardi, definitely a Cardassian, because those guys are just
a Cardi.
Yeah, that's my people.
Would you be Obsidian Order? Or would you be like hardcore?
Well,
or would you
I
be like their military?
You.
Oh, okay. So you're Obsidian Order.
It's just like Narek. He's just like, and so even if you wore Telstra, you wouldn't be able to tell me, right? Right.
You mean narrowed?
Narrowed. The British Romulan. So we gotta run here, guys. But thanks so much for joining us. Everybody at home, thank you for joining us. Special thanks to Kat R. King, Homer Frizzell, and Marie Segal, and Heather Jordan. Thank you always for joining us. And as usual, always remember the 7th rule.